it's my pleasure to introduce Mo Gomez. He's going to be telling us about steelhead restoration. So back to when we're talking about the important things that biological diversity does for us, like holding together our slopes, that affects things like the steelhead. So Mo is the director of South Coast Habitat Restoration. It's a nonprofit organization based in Carpinteria, and he's been working on watershed restoration projects for the past 17 years in the Santa Barbara and Ventura region. He's proud of the partnerships he's developed in his career to focus on steelhead trout recovery efforts. And when not working, he enjoys spending time with his family and friends exploring the great outdoors. So thank you so much, Mo. Take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Denise. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
I confirm.
Great. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Mauricio Gomez. I'm the director of South Coast Habitat Restoration. And this afternoon, I'm going to give a presentation on post-fire impacts on steelhead trout habitat and strategies for recovery. I'm very excited to be here and really appreciative of all the previous presentations. I'm learning a lot. I hope everybody else is as well. And I look forward to following up with some of the speakers to get more information on this incredible work that everybody's doing and all the science that's being shared with us. Thank you again, everybody, for your work that you're doing. A little bit about South Coast Habitat Restoration. We're a nonprofit organization that works to protect, conserve, and restore the various habitats and native biodiversity of the Santa Barbara region. How do we do this? Well, we do a lot of things. We perform habitat assessments, we do landowner outreach, we apply for and manage grants from different funders, whether it's state or federal agencies. We coordinate consultants such as biologists, land use planners, engineers, general contractors. We obtain permits for some of the implementation projects we do. We hire and oversee the contractors. We work with the contractors to ensure that the permit conditions are being met. And then we do community outreach and education, such as this afternoon. So a brief outline on the presentation. Talk a little bit about steelhead trout. I'll take you all and get our feet a little bit wet in the presentation and share a little bit about steelhead trout, their life cycle, a little bit about their history, some photographs, some examples of fire impacts on steelhead and the streams. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the strategies for improving habitat that we're involved with, and a little bit overview on some of the future projects we're involved with. And just to kind of point out a little bit here, I wanted to say thank you to Michelle for showing me how to use the laser pointer in your presentation. I had never done that. That was really cool. This is a little bit of an outdated map. It's Southern California fires, greater urban 1,000 acres that we put together from 2007 to 2018. So there's obviously been a number of fires since then, but when we put this map together, it was a little bit after the Thomas Fire and Woolsey Fire. And we were just struck by how much of our landscape across our region was being impacted by fires. And if we had gone back and included, another 20, 30 years back, most of this area would have been even lit up with some of these different fire scars. And so we're showing some of the watersheds, as well as highlighted in by the watersheds, some of the critical habitat watersheds where steelhead trout are currently found, and there's efforts ongoing to try and do some recovery efforts in those systems. So a little bit about steelhead trout. They are very similar to salmon in that they're born in freshwater systems like rivers or creeks, and they can flow out to the ocean and then come back and spawn. They don't have to do that. They can stay within the freshwater system of the loop and retain their genetic integrity by growing in those areas. But in this case, a lot of our work is that migration of up and down the system is being blocked by a lot of different barriers, and the habitat to get to those upper watersheds is really impacted by fires. And I'm going to go over that in a minute. But before we get to that, I'd like to highlight just some of the photographs of what steelhead looked like in our region and have looked like historically. So in the 1940s, this is a photograph shared by a family down in the Carpinteria area where our office is based, and we've done a lot of our work in this watershed, Carpinteria Creek. So this is a stringer of fish that a gentleman by the name of George Bliss caught one afternoon in the 1940s. So really incredible to see large fish like this at that time, and I'm glad that we have this photograph. Similar time frame in the late 40s. This is the mouth of the Santa Maria River, where there was a lot of fishermen at the estuary just catching a bunch of fish down that way. More recent, in 2008, again in Carpinteria Creek, we have a couple photographs showing some steelhead trout. And this is the last time that steelhead trout have been seen in this watershed. So I just wanted to highlight this a little bit, where we've got two adult steelhead here, and photograph on the right, there's a female exhibiting behavior, making a nest, or in the fish world, we call it a redd. And so you can see the female on her side, kicking up some suspended sediment. It's the little plume that's right here, and the current takes that and moves it downstream. The photograph on the left shows what all that work ended up enabling, a depression in the stream bed of fine sediments getting kicked up and moved out so that they can deposit their eggs, and those can then get protected within the interstitial spaces between the cobbles in the stream channel. If you notice very closely here, there's a small little fish, which we suspect is a male, that was looking to try and fertilize these. Unfortunately, this pool dried out. It was located downstream of a barrier to fish migration. And unfortunately, these fish all perished in the spring of 2008. Sorry to share bad news, but our work is making a lot of progress, and a couple other photographs here of steelhead. This is on San Ynez River, a 26-inch steelhead, and then over in 2017, another adult, about a 24-incher that was found in Romero Creek in the Goleta area, and a small little male as well. Moving up the coast a little bit, in the Sisquoc River watershed, this is a photograph from a colleague in 2005, Matt Stecker, surveying the Sisquoc River watershed. And then in the Manzana watershed, this will be a little video, so let me see if this works. Great, it's working. You can see about an 8-inch trout in the Manzana system that we were doing some red-legged frog fish surveys, and came across this beautiful fish. And if you look very closely on the right, there's another little guy that pops into the get a little photo bomb in the video there. So there's fish in the system, and they can be very impacted as a result of the effects of wildfire. And so before I show some of those effects, I wanted to show you some of the typical system settings that we see in the creeks. So this is Carpinteria Creek. A few of these will be Carp Creek, where we're just showing a natural creek setting where you've got large trees. You've got a mixture of cottonwoods, sycamores, some alders in this watershed, and some vines growing in there as well. A lot of understory species, some trees that have fallen over, providing canopy cover. The stream bed itself has embedded rocks with nice water flowing through it. I'll show a couple other photographs here on the left. There's a nice pool here that's formed at the side of this boulder. On the right, we've got a run that's, again, having some nice stream habitat. Again, a lot of the trees in the area here providing nice shade. Steelhead trout really require cool water in order for them to spawn. And so as the water gets warmer, it gets more difficult for the fish for the eggs to survive. And so it can be dangerous for them. Another example of a nice creek setting in the Carpinteria system, and another pool, just to kind of give everybody an idea of the befores, so to speak, of a system before a fire, which then gets impacted by rain events and or debris flow events. In this case, here's the examples of some of the fire impacts. So these photographs were taken in the Carpinteria Creek watershed immediately after the Thomas fire. In fact, the fire was still burning in certain parts of the area where it was still causing impacts. And just kind of to highlight, a lot of vegetation understories burned. You still have a lot of trees present in the ground, or on the ground, I should say, a lot of ash. Again, there's hardly any shrubs left. So your mugwort, your blackberry, a lot of those species were just gone. Your giant rye disappeared and just turned to ash. The slopes draining into the hillsides, into the creek, were mostly denuded in most areas in the system. Again, the riparian canopy stayed pretty intact. Looked okay, not pretty intact, but it was highly impacted. But there were some trees. Here's a sycamore in the middle of the photograph. So a lot of impacts to the system. The next couple of photographs I'll show were taken a year after the debris flow event, and you'll see some of the surrounding areas having more vegetation, more green popping up in the photos, as well as the main thing I wanted to highlight is the stream channel is impacted here with a lot of cobbles here that had filled in the pool habitat that steelhead trout really require In this case, there's a couple of colleagues from a consulting firm that we work with, Waterways Consulting. We were doing an assessment of the watershed where they're standing used to be a beautiful pool, and that pool had been completely filled in with fine sediment. Very difficult for a fish to live in those settings, of course. Another pool here that we had been tracking, for many, many years, basically filled in almost to the rim, and doesn't have any habitat left available immediately after the fire and debris flow. Another photograph. This used to be a series of pools. Now it's just a stream channel, with about 2-3 inches of water flowing through it. No habitat complexity for fish. This is a photograph from Romero Creek, where those debris flow impacts were a little bit more impactful to the stream channel. A lot of degradation happened and bedrock was exposed. Interestingly, as that area was exposed, bedrock that looks like had been exposed in the past probably and had water flowing through it, as evidenced in the middle of the photograph here. Again, a lot of fine sediment running through here, which filled in some of the pools and makes for really cool areas to inspect what's been walking in front of you, and maybe behind you as well. So you can see my boot on the left there, and on the right you can see what I'm pretty sure is a very large bear print. We're happy to say that we did not encounter it on the hike that day. The systems seem to recover on their own in some cases, with different species. Again, a lot of the information shared by the previous speakers is kind of maybe what you're thinking about as you're seeing this. This slope coming down here on the left is primarily dominated by a giant ryegrass. So I mentioned earlier, a lot of that got burned when the fire happened, but it literally was weeks and there was already respouts coming up after the fire buzzed through this area. So vegetation comes back, and then you get your occasional beautiful flowers, this Humboldt lily. So it was a beautiful flower to see one day when I was out there. It's exciting. So now moving on to strategies for improving. I'm going to run through this a little bit because I am running a little bit out of time. But I wanted to show you some of the work that we've been involved with in order to try and open up habitat for steelhead trout. I'm going to highlight a project that we're working with a lot of partners. It's the Davey Brown Munch Creek Fish Passage Project. The goal of the project was to increase access to a little over 3 miles of habitat for the federally endangered trout by removing 3 barriers to migration and building 2 vehicular bridges. It's located in the Los Padres National Forest within the Santa Lucia Ranger District. Our partners for the project are the United States Forest Service. We have a whole bunch of funders, Foundation, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Coastal Conservancy, County of Santa Barbara, the California Fish Passage Forum, CalTrout. Our project budget's about $4 million. We have a great team of engineers, cultural monitors, bridge manufacturers, and contractors for the project. Here's almost everybody's logos. I hopefully didn't leave anybody's logo off of this. That's been involved in the project over the decades that it's been talked about by the Forest Service and partners in the community. So where is this project? It's located within the Santa Maria River watershed, sub-watershed of the Sisquoc River, and sub-watershed to the Manzana. And let me zoom in a little bit in a second. But first I wanted to highlight the Saca fire from 2007 fire perimeter. So I'll zoom in now, and you'll notice again on the upper right, that red, that's the fire scar area. So these projects are located immediately outside of that fire scar area. And it's really important for our projects to be located there because they're providing a refuge area for fish that were impacted from the very large area that the fire, I think it was about 240,000 acres that burned as part of that fire. So the projects are located on Davey Brown Creek and Munch Creek. So over the years with funding from different partners and a lot of team members, and I got to stop here and highlight, this is a really big project that we're involved with. It's a huge team effort with us bringing in grant funding and engineers, and then the Forest Service doing an incredible job of working with us and moving the project forward. Everything from the permitting for the project to reviewing engineering designs for the project. There was so much work by so many different people, and I just wanted to stop and highlight Adam Furlow from the Forest Service engineering team, to Christy Close, fisheries biologist with the Forest Service, that we've been working very diligently to get this project going. And the engineers developed these designs to remove these barriers and build bridges across them so vehicles can get across. So let me show you a couple of those photographs. This is the Munch Creek site looking upstream. It was a old concrete slab poured across the creek. We went in there with the California Conservation Corps, removed it, and it now looks like this. Same vantage point. I'll flip back for a second. You see the tree that's kind of Y-shaped in the top. Same tree in the second photograph. That concrete's been removed. The concrete leading to the creek was removed, and this is now the new approach to the creek for the Davey Brown Trail. I'm going to do a quick little video showing the work that the California Conservation Corps did through a time-lapse camera that we have out here. And this was done in 2020. If you look at the thermometer that on the images there, it was extremely hot. It was over 110 degrees during the day. So these young men and women from the CCC did an incredible job of ripping up all this concrete and filling buckets up and hauling it off site in order for the stream channel to be restored. And we were happy that after many decades of that concrete being in place, the stream is now opened up for habitat. Moving on to the upper Sunset Valley Road site, this is the before photograph as you drive to the creek crossing. And this is the after photograph of the same site. Again, I'll go back to the before, the after. So now we've installed a vehicular bridge that allows for vehicles to drive across, and the stream channel, this is looking up the creek, has now been restored as well, removing that concrete from the channel and improving fish migration opportunities. Moving on to the lower site, again, a before photograph, an after photograph, and an upstream shot looking up the canyon. You'll notice the creek banks are very bare at both these sites. We are in the process of doing revegetation out there, and we'll be working with the California Conservation Corps, the San Ynez Chumash Indians, as well as the Forest Service botanist and provincial ecologist to assist us with getting plants in the ground out there. And we might need to bring some buckets of water because the creek level is going low, and hopefully everybody can do their rain dance after the talk, and we can get a little bit more rain before this winter's over. And then moving on, I wanted to highlight kind of some of the other species that we've been encountering as we've been out to the project site in this beautiful part of our county. And there's red-legged frog out there. This is a photograph I took, and they're just incredible looking frogs that I highly recommend everybody get a chance to see one. We had deer, we had scorpions. It's just beautiful, and just kind of wanted to highlight some of the other species that are out there. And we also mounted a camera at a location not too far from our project site, and we documented a lot of wildlife that is still present in this area. There's about 10 or 15 quick slides that I'm going to go over, just like a slideshow here, showing some of the different wildlife. And I have a before and after each one. Each of the befores has a critter, and most of the afters has a circle of where that critter is. So this is the before photograph showing a red-tailed hawk. I'm pretty sure that's what that is there. Second photograph here is the before, and here you got an owl down getting some drink of water from this pool. This is an interesting photograph. There's two animals in this photograph. You can probably see the skunk immediately there, and there's a skunk, and right behind it, about maybe 8 to 10 feet behind it, is a mountain lion that ended up going for a little walk behind it. And we got a series of 3 photographs, and then the camera didn't take photos. So I don't know what happened after that, but I'll let you all imagine what took place after that. We have a heron up here. We have a bobcat, bear, mountain lion, and another mountain lion photograph here. So just kind of wanted to show some of that stuff to you guys, because I think it's important to keep in mind all the different species that we're working with in our area to try to improve habitat. And the access for migration in the creek is important, but also the work that the previous speakers regarding improving vegetation communities is extremely important for all those critters as well. And I just lastly wanted to highlight some of the different watersheds that we're working on currently and into the future. We're working in partnership with the Nature Conservancy over at Dangermont Preserve on Halama Creek. We're doing some work on Gaviota Creek with state parks, as well as Caltrans. We're working with on El Capitan Creek with state parks, on Rio Ignacio Creek with various private landowners, Carpinteria Creek, and then the Ventura River with U.S. Forest Service as well on some fish passage removal work out that way. And photograph up here on the top left is, I try to sneak in a photograph of my son, but he's now getting too big to sneak him in. So that's a photograph I took of him last year, looking at some snowy plovers here in Carpinteria. With that, thank you very much. Sorry I went over a little bit, but hopeful that you guys enjoyed the presentation, and just wanted to say thank you to Denise and the Botanic Garden for inviting me to give this presentation, and congratulations to Carla. Thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you, Mo, so much. It's so exciting to see all the big stuff that we can still accomplish and all the great effects up the food web that has. So thanks so much for the photos and videos. That was great.